Tell me if you can relate to this. Time and time again, I would wake up in the morning and I'd say, today's my last day smoking weed. Today's my last day vaping nicotine. And sure enough, by mid-afternoon, certainly by that same evening, I would find myself at a dispensary, at a vape shop, or texting my plug, asking for more of the substance. And upon receiving that substance, I would immediately, or shortly after, be overwhelmed by feelings of decreased confidence, regret, shame, and just an overall feeling that I was forever going to be a failure when it came to attaining sobriety and quitting these drugs. Eventually, after enough times of doing that, I started to ask myself the question, what are successful people doing who are sober that I'm not? What actions are they taking, and what character traits do they have that I'm lacking? Because success leaves clues. And that's certainly true of sobriety and quitting nicotine and quitting cannabis. So in today's video, what I've done is I've put together 17 traits that I've identified across the hundreds, if not thousands of people that I've helped overcome addiction to nicotine and cannabis products to see if you can align or develop some of these traits. And as a quick disclaimer, I want to make something very clear. Many people, myself included, did not go into sobriety with these traits, but rather they used sobriety and quitting drugs as an opportunity to develop and sharpen these character traits, okay? So if you hear this video and you're like, well, that's not me, I'm not this or I'm not that, stop saying that to yourself. This is your opportunity to become that. Now, real quick, if you're a high-performance individual, we have a science-backed protocol that has a 98% success rate at helping people get sober in as little as 48 hours from the privacy and comfort of their own home, without group meetings, without relapses, without all that stuff. So if that interests you, be sure to check out the link in the video description. Trait number 1 is these individuals no longer identified as a powerless addict. They didn't see themselves as some out-of-control animal who has no choice in the decisions that they're making. They completely deconstructed the belief system that's ingrained in traditional recovery protocols, that you're a powerless addict, that you have no control over your decisions, and that you have a lifelong disease. The people who are successful no longer identify as that. They also no longer identify as a person whose quality of life is enhanced by substance use. So they recognize that smoking weed, using nicotine doesn't enhance the good times, and it doesn't distract them from the bad times. They've done an unbelievable job at devaluing their beliefs and their identity surrounding the consumption of that drug. When it comes to a shift in identity, people who have successfully quit see themselves for the person that they really are. An entrepreneur, a business owner, a parent, a husband, a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a coworker, a sibling. They see themselves as everything but a powerless addict who's doomed for the rest of their lives. Trait number 2, these individuals remain highly self-accountable for their actions and their choices. The word relapse does not exist for them. They recognize that every decision they make is rooted in choice, and the choices they make are not dependent upon life's external circumstances. People who are successful in sobriety don't come up saying, today was a stressful day, or today I had a really big win at work and I just feel I got to celebrate somehow. They don't say, I got in an argument with my wife, or they don't say, my low back really hurts me today, or I have this pain or this nagging issue that I'm dealing with. They don't let their decision to consume drugs be dependent upon outside situations that they can or maybe cannot control. They take full accountability for their choices and their decisions. And the reason why these people are so successful with this secondary trait is because they're no longer like a feather blowing in the wind in whichever direction life is going to take them. They are the ones determining what direction they are going to go. And this is why the word relapse does not exist. It's not some spontaneous thing that just happens to them. Trait number 3, they rely on discipline versus motivation. And this is a big thing that I kept getting wrong time and time again, and that I've seen clients get wrong time and time again. And it's just because people don't have an understanding of how substance use works. When you're addicted to cannabis or nicotine or alcohol or adult media content and you go to quit, chances are those dopamine levels are at an all-time low. And dopamine is what's responsible for motivation and taking action. So when you're consuming a bunch of drugs, the very thing that you need to have the motivation to want to stop isn't there. It's gone. It's depleted. So you can't go into sobriety relying on being motivated to do so. Now, a lot of people will say, but Dr. Frank, I'm not disciplined. That's why I have this problem. Good. This is an opportunity to make a commitment to something and to build and develop that muscle of discipline, right? Just like we build the muscles in our arms, we can build the muscles in our mind. Sobriety is that opportunity for so many people. And then once you build that skill set of self-accountability, of discipline, you can start to apply that skill set to your marriage, to your business, to your physical fitness, to your nutrition, to your relationships, to your financial discipline, to your finances. The list goes on and on and on. So they don't rely on motivation, they rely on discipline, because the reality is everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And for most people, the cannabis withdrawal symptoms, the nicotine withdrawal symptoms, the pornography withdrawal symptoms, that's a punch to the mouth. The motivation you had, it's gone. Now it's time to implement discipline, staying committed to a decision that you made. Rinse, wash, repeat, you're going to find yourself becoming more disciplined. Trait 4, these people see the cup half full versus half empty. They don't look at situations as immediately negative or positive, but they're really good and they're really patient at waiting for the long-term outcomes of those situations. Even the bad situations that are inevitably going to happen, usually around the 2-week mark of quitting, I find it's the most common point, shit hits the fan in a person's sobriety journey. They say to themselves, not this is bad, but what can I learn from this? What can I take away from this? And this is something I learned in sobriety personally that I recently implemented. I've talked about it on my channel a lot lately. Me and my family recently went through a miscarriage. A family member very close to me was diagnosed with cancer. I had some major business interruptions and things like that. Just a lot of bad things have happened in a short period of time. But instead of saying, this is terrible, why did these things happen to me and my family and the people that I love, I said, what can I learn from this? What can I take away from this? And there were some very positive outcomes to those things. It completely restructured my relationships with people in my life that I care about because I was taking my time for them with granted. The cancer diagnosis made me realize that. It completely made me restructure how I run my businesses, that my time is more valuable than I realize, and that I can't do everything on my own. It led to us remodeling our basement in our home because we realized we might have family here from time to time if they need help and they need care related to an illness. But that resulted in a new office for me and a playroom for my child. So even in negative times, you can learn something positive. And this is viewing the cup as half full versus half empty. Trait number 5 that makes people successful in sobriety, they have front sight focused. They're focused on what's ahead of them, and they're not spending time ruminating on the past or on past decisions and feelings of shame and regret. They are exceptionally skilled at moving forward. And this is something that develops in sobriety because for a lot of us, it's easy to look back and reflect on our drug use and say, gosh, that was horrible. Gosh, where would have I been in life if I didn't do that? Gosh, I have so much regret. No, in sobriety, you have to learn how to move forward. And when you're moving forward, when you're using front sight focus, a term that's referenced to staring down the front sight of a scope on a rifle, when you're front sight focused, you're focused on what's ahead of you, not behind you. Because if you're focused on what's behind you, you're going to miss the threat or the opportunities that are in front of you. More so in this case, the opportunities that lie ahead in sobriety, right? This was a major problem that I had with traditional therapy and 12-step programs and other groups. They were so heavily focused on the past. And what they were doing by doing this, like referring back to my past traumas with family and divorce and all these things and stuff, what they were basically doing was giving me an unlimited excuse to continue using substances. Past events have nothing to do with your current substance use. And if that sounds radically different to you from what you've heard before, you need to keep paying attention to this video. Trait number 6, these individuals develop new habit loops. And so many times I see this go wrong with clients, especially when there's polysubstance use involved. I have 2 business professionals that I'm currently working with. Well, they're actually doing very good right now. We're coming towards the tail end of our work together. But one was a medical professional, one was kind of in real estate project management, and they had polysubstance use, addicted to more than one thing. Alcohol, cannabis, stimulants, adult media content. And so many times when people set out to quit a substance, they'll say, okay, I'm going to dramatically change my whole life. I'm going to start working out. I'm going to eat healthier. I'm going to go to church every day. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And that's not how you should do this, especially if there's polysubstance use. So in the case of this one individual, we identified that stimulants, prescription stimulant abuse, was their biggest problem. So first, we started by not changing anything in the lifestyle, but we started with getting them away from prescription stimulant use. Now, after we did that, they said, okay, I'm ready to quit weed. I'm ready to quit some other prescription medications, right? And I said, no, we quit stimulants. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually focus on going to the gym. We're going to focus on working on this back pain you've had. We're going to focus on nutrition and some weight loss. Then after we get some positive momentum in that lifestyle, then we're going to go to quit cannabis and so on and so forth. And someone might think, well, why didn't you just have them quit everything at once? Because this is a high-level business professional who's been dependent upon substances to an extent to run their business for years. If you just go in there and try and disrupt their whole life overnight, you're going to disrupt their business. You're going to disrupt their family life. Right? This individual, and same with the other one, both have 3 children at home. You can't do that. So when it comes to lifestyle modification and building new habit loops, you want to do that, but you need to recognize that that takes time, and there's a very specific way of doing it. Because the other thing that I'll see on this trait number 6 when it comes to building new habit loops is people will try and do it all at once. They'll inevitably not succeed at that. And then they'll say, I can't do anything right. I'll throw in the towel and I might as well go back to using drugs. Don't make that mistake. Trait number 7 that makes people successful in sobriety, they have emotional resilience. And what I mean by that is not only emotional regulation and control, which normally comes when you start quitting drugs, because you're sleeping better, you're making better decisions, you're thinking more clarity, right? You're more rational day to day. But they're emotionally resilient in that it's not that they're asking for an absence of pain or that they're spending time trying to escape and numb things. It's that they're now asking for the strength to endure the pain, to endure the discomfort, to endure the storm. I think I saw a really good quote once that said, you know, something like, I don't remember if it was a religious quote or what it was, but it was like, you know, God, don't give me an absence of storms, but give me the strength or give me the boat to get through the storm. Something like that. I don't remember where I heard it from, but this is definitely a character trait that I've identified in people who are successful in sobriety. They expect bad things to continue to happen. They expect good things to continue to happen. They simply ask for the strength to get through it versus an avoidance of it. Trait number 8, they have a community and they have a mentor. These people are really, really good at identifying what they're good at and what they're not good at. This is especially true in regard to quitting substances. I have had a number of clients who are exceptional parents, who are exceptional entrepreneurs, who are really high-level business owners, who are incredible at making massive sums of money, but they have been really, really bad and really unsuccessful at quitting substances. And the people who successfully quit recognize that about themselves. So they put themselves around a like-minded community of people who have similar goals, similar aspirations, and they get mentorship on the areas of life that they struggle with. I get mentorship on YouTube. I once got mentorship on sobriety. I once got mentorship on filming and camera sets up and audio equipment, right? I get mentorship on all types of things. I'm constantly getting continued mentorship to sharpen my skills as an addiction recovery coach. Successful people recognize that they are not the smartest person in the room and they don't know it all, and they're not afraid to ask for help when they need help. Now, real quick, maybe you're a high-performance individual. You're an executive, you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, or you're a high-level professional. We have a science-backed protocol that helps people get sober in as little as 48 hours from the comfort and privacy of their own home, without group meetings, without admitting you're a powerless addict, and without relapses. And we help you do it in real time, in real life. We only work with a limited number of clients each month. So if that interests you, check out the link in the video description. Trait number 9, successful people in sobriety have what I refer to as selective environmental control. They are incredible at regulating who they spend their time with and the types of content that they consume. They are also exceptional at learning how to say no. And for many people in sobriety, this skill of saying no starts with saying no to oneself. I had a high-level project manager that I'm working with, and this individual was taking on everything in his business. Everything from the development of these massive buildings and getting the contractors and this and that, all the way down to the nuts and bolts of installing a toilet. And they were running multiple projects at once. And I said to them, look, you have to learn how to say no. You have way too many people asking for your time that shouldn't be, and your time is way too valuable to be doing that. And he agreed. He was like, my phone is constantly going off. The DMs, the emails, there's hundreds of them, thousands of them a day coming in. And I said, no one could sustain that. You're saying yes, you're giving your time to too many people, too many things that likely don't need your attention. People who are good at being sober are very selective of who and where they give their time, and they are very skilled when it comes to saying no. A skill that I greatly lacked in active addiction, but it was a skill that I developed while practicing the discipline of sobriety, a skill that you could probably get very excited about. Trait number 10, a lot of my successful clients, they don't waste time on moderation. Moderation is 100% possible for even the worst of people who have struggled with addiction. It is very possible. With all the right identity shifts, with enough time, with a change of environment, it can happen. But in the beginning, people who are most successful at breaking addiction don't waste time on moderation. They spend their time expanding on and developing the aspects of their life that they want to see grow. I say this all the time. Why would I spend time moderating something that I don't want to be doing anymore, when I could be expanding on the aspects of my life, my family, my travel, my faith, my business, my finances, the things in life that I actually care about? Trait number 11, successful people in sobriety have a purpose-driven routine. Okay, not just a routine, but a purpose-driven routine that is goal-oriented. And let me explain what I mean by that. So many times I would get advice from people when it comes to sobriety. Go for a walk. Do an adult coloring book, try meditating. And the reality was, so many of these routines that were being advised to me had nothing to do with the long-term goals, or rather what I'll say, the long-term obsessions in my life that I actually cared about. People who achieve sobriety have systems, they have routines, they have behaviors and things in place that they can default back onto. And they don't just have one, they have several. And I've seen this mistake so many times with people. They'll make exercise be their only default routine, and then they tear their shoulder, or they injure their knee, or they hurt their back. And then the one routine that was keeping them sober, because they didn't do all the mindset work and stuff like that, now falls apart, and they make the conscious choice to going back to consuming the drug. But if we can put multiple routines, multiple simple systems in place for you that are focused on your goals, the expectations that you have in sobriety, I promise you it makes this process of quitting 1,000 times easier. And that's why we see people in our protocol get sober in as little as 48 hours or less. Trait number 12, these individuals have exceptional self-care practices. They take care of their fitness. They take care of their nutrition. They take care of their family. They watch what they eat. They watch how they sleep. They look at the amount of exercise they get every day. They check in with themselves when it comes to their mental health. They have very strong self-care practices. And many of these practices are often baked right into their routines. I remember when I was quitting substances, one of my self-care practices was doing teeth whitening at night instead of vaping, instead of smoking. And instead of doing that while I would respond to emails, I would just sit there with like a teeth whitener in my mouth. So not only did it distract me from using drugs, it became part of my routine, and it also helped to build my confidence, my self-appearance, which built my confidence in turn. Do you see how many things you can impact with the right routines that I'm talking about? Trait number 13 that makes people successful is they educate themselves. This is kind of like what I said earlier. They acknowledge that they're not the smartest person in the room when it comes to everything. They educate themselves because they want to understand the problem that they're facing. Because so many people, when it comes to sobriety and quitting drugs, don't understand the problem or the challenge that lies ahead of them. And when you don't know what the challenge is, it's impossible to put together a roadmap to get you to a solution. So these people who succeed, they educate themselves. They educate themselves about substance use. They educate themselves about withdrawal. They educate themselves about recovery. And they make sure that that education is coming from a qualified source, not necessarily Reddit forums and YouTube comments and things like that. Trait number 14 is faith and religion. I don't spend a lot of time in my YouTube channel talking about this, despite being a man of faith, but faith and religion are something that I see time and time again among people who are successful in sobriety. Do I think it's absolutely necessary? No, certainly not. I think a number of these traits aren't necessary outside of that shift in identity and mindset, but it helps. And I can tell you, when people go through horrible things, myself having recently gone through some horrible events in my life, and I talk to people and I say, how did you get through that? How did you overcome that? I've asked my mentors this, and all of them say when it's that bad, it's faith, it's religion, and I think a lot of that is rooted in having certain values, having certain ethics, and not feeling like you're alone. But look, I know faith and religion has also burned a lot of people, right? It's the cause of a lot of war, it's the cause of a lot of bad things too. So that's why I'm not saying that's 100% necessary, and that's why I don't talk about it a lot on my channel. It's not because I'm against it, it's not because I'm for it, it's just, not something we talk about a lot on the channel. Trait 15, and this one's important, they have exceptional follow-up and follow-through. These people do not procrastinate anything. And I believe this is what results in emotional regulation and an overall increased stress tolerance that I see in people who are successfully sober. They don't sit on stuff. If they have an email, they have a text message, they have something that needs to be addressed, they address it on the spot. They don't let things pile up. And I think that results in an overall reduction of stress, a higher stress tolerance, and a greater ability to take action. Trait 16, these people deeply understand the difference between trying and doing. I can't tell you how many times in my life I would go to my mentors and I would say, but I'm trying so hard, I'm trying so hard. I was in fact trying, but I wasn't actually doing. And there's a big difference between really trying and really doing something. Because when you're really trying, when you're actually doing, you're going to succeed. And so many times I see people in sobriety thinking they're trying, thinking they're working hard at it, when in reality they're not doing much at all. I fell for this and I've seen people fall for it time and time again. The people who are successful do. They don't try. And that's why they are successful. They commit and they see that commitment through. Trait number 17, and an incredibly important one, is they don't compare their journey or their success or lack of success to someone else's. You need to stop comparing yourself to others, because someone else's definition of success or whatever it may be could be dramatically different from yours. Many times when we find ourselves comparing ourselves to others, we don't even have a realistic expectation of what, one, success is to us, and two, what's going on the other side of that screen in that person's life. We don't know. So a lot of times you're comparing yourself to something that might very well be a facade, a fraud. And what a tragedy to compare yourself to that scenario and draw potentially really negative conclusions about yourself. Sobriety is you versus you. It's about you doing 1% better than your baseline average has been for all these years. That's all that matters. So if you find yourself getting tied up comparing to others, I would highly recommend you stop doing that. This is your unique, individualized experience. It's good to get some input from people. If it's the right people, it's good to know what to expect. But at the end of the day, it's you versus you. It's about your success, not about their success. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you might be thinking, good, I'm ready to quit. And if that's the case, I got another video for you that's going to help you break free when it comes to making excuses and some of the common victim mentality mindset that people fall into when they're quitting nicotine, cannabis, or other substances. So follow me right into that next video. It's short,